Casey, and I'm here to tell you my ulcerative colitis story. Um, Ulcerative colitis. What is ulcerative colitis? It's an autoimmune disease and it affects the large intestine. So basically, your immune system attacks your own large intestine or the colon and attacks the wall of the colon, intestinal lining, and it causes inflammation and bleeding and a whole slew of digestive symptoms, as well as symptoms like outside of the digestive tract. Um, and so that is what I have. It's called UC for short, and that's why the name of my channel is UCWarriorWoman. So I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about like my history, like when did I start to notice symptoms, and when did I start to get treatment, all that kind of thing. So that's what I'm telling you today. So basically, it was fall 2008. I was in college. I went on a medication for anxiety because I was having a lot of anxiety. And it caused some constipation issues. So I started to see a little bit of blood in my stool, and I thought, oh, that's kind of like a little weird. So I decided that I would get a referral from my primary care doctor to go to the GI doctor, which is a gastroenterologist. And so I decided to go there, and I met the doctor that I still have currently, and he decided to do something called a sigmoidoscopy, which is a little scope that goes up into the colon. You're totally awake for that. You have to prep with some fun laxatives and enemas, and they go in there and they take a quick look and see what's going on. So he went in there in 2008, take a look, and he just saw some hemorrhoids, and he was like, you have hemorrhoids, drink more water, and basically that's it. So after that, I kind of just ignored it. Any little bit of blood I saw, I just was like, oh, okay, well, just the hemorrhoids. I tended to have a little bit of like gas and bloating and things like that during that time period, but I didn't really think much of it. So fast forward a bunch of years. So fall 2013, I was feeling super healthy at that time. I was like 125 pounds, which is the most I ever weighed because I always had trouble putting weight on ever since I was a kid. I was working out all the time. I was getting ready to get married, so I'd been like really trying to like make sure I was in my best shape. So I did get married like September 2013. I was currently working on my master's degree at that time too, so there was a lot going on. And then the next year, fall 2014, I was in like a super stressful time. I was working at Home Depot. I was doing my internship for my degree, my master's degree in school counseling. I was also having like a ton of homework to do. So it was like super, super high stress. And then we had a family event occur also that kind of just added on to it. And so that was fall 2014. I was still feeling pretty good. I was still seeing like a little bit of blood and stuff like that, like I had been before. And I think this is when I started to see just like a tiny bit more of that and some more constipation, bloating, and things like that. But I still didn't really think too much of it at that point. So then fall 2015, I had quit my job at Home Depot after like 7 years to go and be a paraprofessional, which is a job in the school system as like a teacher's aide, after I got my degree in school counseling, which was kind of hard because it was an entry-level job and I had just spent a ton of money to get this big degree and I couldn't find a job in what I wanted to do. But I knew that it would be a good experience, so I went ahead and I did that. I started to see a little bit more symptoms of the colitis during this time, but I didn't know that I had colitis. I thought I still had hemorrhoids, and so I just ignored it. I hadn't been to the GI since 2008, and so I was like, well, I could drink more water. I decided to get a probiotic tea, and I had that every night, and it actually helped a lot. I felt better, so I was like, oh, all right, I guess that's doing the job. So fast forward some more, it's like spring 2016, and I started looking for a job again because I really wanted to get a job as a school counselor, not as a paraprofessional, as a school counseling job would be, a salaried position, and it'd be with the degree that I wanted. So I went and I was looking for that. I did find a job in that, and so I was like really excited, but I was also like nervous, and it's a big change. So that summer, I started to notice like more blood, and also the constipation would be like multiple days, and then I would have days where it was like urgently had to release the constipation, and it was kind of like a cycle like that. And the blood got to the point where it was like the toilet water was like bright red, and I was getting kind of worried. So I decided, like, I asked my husband at the time to please come in the bathroom and look in the toilet, because I was like really nervous. I'm like, I need you to just tell me if I should like go to the hospital or like go to the doctor. It was one day, I can't remember exactly the day, but I remember asking that, and it was very embarrassing because this illness is like you're alone in the bathroom and nobody sees. Then it's kind of scary. It's like I need somebody to see like what is happening. And I also took some pictures because I was like, maybe I need to bring this to the doctor. So that happened. But then I still didn't go to the doctor because I was very nervous about going to the doctor. I didn't really want to know, I guess. So I just sort of kept ignoring it, and it got a little bit better. So I'm like, it's okay. It's probably just the hemorrhoids again. But yes. So then the fall 2016, I started my new job, and right before the start of the year, we had to do new teacher orientation, and I remember being very nervous. And I was in the orientation. I remember having to leave orientation like a bunch of times because my stomach was like killing me, and I kept having to go to the bathroom. I'm like, well, it's just like a nervous stomach, which it probably was because the nervous stomach can actually make the colitis a little bit worse, the symptoms. But at the same time, I was still seeing blood, and it was urgency, and I remember that very specifically. Like, this is sort of weird, but I felt better later, so it's fine. But not long after that, I was like, all right, I should go to the doctor again. Just get it checked just to make sure. So that fall, like probably like a few weeks after new teacher orientation, I went back to the GI doctor that I had seen way back in 2008. And when I got in there, he was like, I want to do a colonoscopy and just check everything out. So I was like, a colonoscopy? Like, I'm 27 years old. You're not supposed to have a colonoscopy till you're 50 years old. But I was like, I do want to know what's going on. So I decided, I'm going to have the colonoscopy. So in November of 2016, I was a couple months into starting my new job, I went in to have a colonoscopy. The preparation, I will never forget the first preparation. It was like, you have to drink all this magnesium citrate with Gatorade mixture all night, and basically makes you have to go to the bathroom all night long. It's got to clear out all the pipes so they can see everything really well. And I remember like being so full of fluid by the time I had to do the morning preparation that I like was just puking the stuff up, and I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work. So that was fun. And then I went in for the procedure, and the doctor found some inflammation, just a little bit in the rectum, and he called it proctitis. And I was like, okay, just a little bit. He didn't really make a big, huge deal out of it. He didn't say the word colitis. He didn't say the word ulcerative colitis. He said proctitis. So I'm like, all right, well, this isn't good, but, it's manageable. He said I don't have to do any medication as long as it's not interfering with my life at all. You're just kind of like manage the symptoms. And you might want to take some Metamucil, keep things regulated, and drink a lot of water and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, no treatment, not interfering, we're all set. And then I just kind of went about my life. So that was fall 2016. So then in December of 2016, me and my then husband, we bought a house and we moved into the new house. That was like a really good year. I was still seeing a little bit of blood, but I still felt good. I had good weight. Like, I felt healthy. I did start to see some more gas and bloating and like constipation, diarrhea. Like I did notice a little bit more of that during that time, but it was just sort of periodic and it wasn't interfering with anything. So I thought, sorry, I'll just kind of go about my life and not make a big deal of it. I didn't change my diet. I didn't do anything like that. But kind of continued. So by the spring of 2017, I was still concerned with the blood. So I was like, I should go back and see the GI doctor again. So I went to see him and I told him, seems like the blood is kind of more, and I just want to make sure that's okay. And at that time he said, well, you do have some colitis, and so you're going to see this, and there's going to be flare-ups, and other times where you're not seeing symptoms. He's like, and I was like, colitis? And that was the first time that the doctor used the word colitis. When I said, well, colitis, and he's like, yeah, colitis is another word for inflammation. But he still didn't say ulcerative colitis. So I'm still thinking, well, I have this thing, but it's not ulcerative colitis. And the reason I say that is because my grandma has ulcerative colitis, and I remember being a kid when she first got diagnosed with it, and I remember her seeing her like so sick, and I was like, that's a scary diagnosis to me. And so I'm like, well, he didn't say that, he just said colitis. But the doctor did want me to do these suppositories of this anti-inflammatory medication, and I was like, oh my gosh, a medication. Like, I was very resistant. I'm one of those people that doesn't like to put things in my body. And so I was resistant to it, but I took it and I went and got the prescription, and it was a suppository, so you have to stick it up your rectum every night, and that was kind of an embarrassing thing for me, and I didn't like doing it. And so I didn't do it very long. I only did it for a week, and then I was like, I think it's making the bleeding worse, and so I just stopped doing it. I didn't ask the doctor, which in hindsight was not a good idea, but I did it anyway, and I just kind of went about my life again, and it was okay. It wasn't interfering. I mean, I saw the blood every morning, and it freaked me out a little bit, but then I'm like, it's fine, and I kept going. In fall 2017, my cousin died, and he died of some drug-related issues, and that was like hard, and the symptoms that I had definitely got worse during that time, and it was definitely a little bit of a flare-up, but I didn't really realize what was happening, so I didn't go back to the doctor right away. I just kind of wrote it out. And I had, more gas and bloating and some more bleeding and constipation and things like that. But I figured too, stress. I know stress messes up with your intestines and your digestive tract, so I was like, it's fine. I know it's only a little bit of inflammation there. It'll be fine. So I kind of wrote it out for a little bit, but then the next spring in 2018, I decided, I had a follow-up with the doctor, and I was like telling him, I'm still seeing the blood, I'm getting really frustrated and upset, and I remember being in the doctor's office like crying because I just wanted the blood to go away. I'm like, I don't understand why I have to wake up every morning and have blood in my stool. Like, it just, it's really frustrating. And the doctor actually got a little bit stern with me, and he was like, well, are you doing the suppositories? And I was like, well, I tried it, but I thought I was making it worse, so I just didn't take it. Just didn't do them. And he was like, if I'm going to help you, like, you need to listen to my advice, basically. And I was like, I got really emotional at that appointment, and he had to hand me a box of tissues. And I was like, I will do it. I will listen to you. So I did. I just started doing the suppositories every day at that point, in spring 2018. I also started a probiotic like he had recommended, and I started to take aloe vera pills that my grandma takes, and so I was like, all right, I'll manage this, I'll do the suppository, I'll do the aloe, I'll do the probiotic, and it actually did help like a good amount, so I was feeling pretty good for the rest of the summer and into the fall. I had a colonoscopy scheduled for the fall, in like November 2018. That was the annual one, because once you get diagnosed with like the inflammation in the colon, or I didn't realize it, but the start of ulcerative colitis or ulcerative colitis, you have to really get regular checks to make sure that everything is okay in there. And so about 2 weeks before I was scheduled to have the colonoscopy, my grandmother died, and I was very, very close with my grandma, and so it was really super stressful and hard. And I remember being in the limo before going into her funeral, and I had to run out of the limo because I needed to use the restroom so urgently. Like, I couldn't wait. And I think that was like the first time that I was like really like, this is like really strange. But I'm like, it's very stressful. So a lot of people get nervous, diarrhea or whatever. But, it was just sort of like a gut feeling, like, I don't know if this is quite right. But at any rate, I had the colonoscopy scheduled for 2 weeks later. So I went in for that, and I went in for that like on a Thursday. And he got in there and he said that there was more inflammation than there was last time. The inflammation had moved up my colon a little bit more, and that's what he said when I got out. And I was kind of loopy, and because I was under anesthesia for a colonoscopy, and so I was like, oh, what? And then I remember crying a little bit, and then kind of being like, all right, I guess this is what I have. And then I went home and still kind of loopy. But later on that day, I looked at the paperwork that he had given me, and there was like a picture of my colon inflamed, and it said on there, ulcerative colitis. And that was the first time like I saw it written out on a medical paperwork, and that's the moment that I felt like, for the first time, I have ulcerative colitis. I have the disease that my grandma has, that I had, hoped to never get, but I haven't. So I was pretty devastated, and I was pretty scared. Like, I didn't want to have this for my life. Like, I have big plans. How can I have this disease now? And like, what do I do? It's really hard. So that was the day of my colonoscopy. That was a Thursday. And I was extra bloated after that procedure, and the preparation had really hurt me a lot, and it caused a lot more bleeding that time. And so, I felt sort of weird that night. But then the next day, I woke up and I was so sick. I was like super nauseous, not puking, but nauseous, no appetite. I had like really bloody diarrhea. I had just a bunch of pain like in my abdomen, and I was like, this is not right. Like, there's some symptoms I never had. And when they go in for the colonoscopy is like all the way up through your entire colon and all the way into your small intestine. So it is irritating, so it can irritate you, and I think it did. But the doctor told me that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't like already in a flare, like about to flare, which I knew that I was, because my grandma had died, and I was stressed, and stressed into it, and I'd been seeing the symptoms.